Most people think practice is about adding skill, but what if practice is actually about deleting effort? Think about the last time you tried to do something new. Maybe you tried to type without looking, or drive a different route, or learn a simple dance move, or even speak up in a meeting. At first, it takes a lot of mental energy. You feel slow, you feel clumsy, you have to think about every step. Then weeks later, you do the same thing and it feels lighter. You don't have to think as much. You can even think about something else while doing it. That shift feels like you got better, but what really happened is that your brain changed how it spends energy. By the end of this video, you will understand neuroplasticity through a different lens. As your brain's system for reducing effort and increasing efficiency, you'll learn why the brain resists change at first, why bad practice can lock in mistakes, and how to practice in a way that changes not just performance but identity. Let's start from a new doorway. Your brain is an organ with a job. It keeps you alive, and to do that, it has a constant problem to solve: energy. The brain uses a lot of energy compared to its size, so it is always looking for ways to spend less energy doing the same things. This is one of the simplest ways to understand neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to change based on experience, but the reason it changes is not just learning, it is efficiency. When you do something for the first time, your brain doesn't have a clean pathway for it yet. It has to recruit a lot of areas at once. It's like a team of people trying to move a couch through a doorway without a plan. Everyone is pushing, everyone is guessing. It works, but it's messy. As you repeat the action, the brain starts refining. It keeps what worked. It weakens what didn't. It starts delegating the task to more specialized networks, and it starts building faster communication routes. This is where the common terms come in, gray matter and white matter. But instead of defining them the same way as before, I want you to think of them like two different job roles. Gray matter is where a lot of the work happens. It's where information is processed, decisions are shaped, sensory input is interpreted. White matter is the connection system. It is made of long nerve fibers that connect different parts of the brain and carry signals between them. If gray matter is where the brain computes, white matter is how the brain moves information quickly. This matters because getting better at something isn't only about stronger brain areas. It's also about faster coordination between brain areas. Skill is coordination. Now we get to the part that makes practice physically real, inside. White matter are many axons, which are long fibers that carry signals. These axons can become wrapped in a substance called myelin. Here is the key idea, said simply. Myelin helps signals travel faster and more reliably. When a signal travels down an axon repeatedly, the brain responds by improving that pathway. And one way it improves the pathway is by increasing myelin. So, in a literal sense, repetition changes how efficiently your brain sends a message. When that message becomes faster, the skill feels easier, not because you became a different person overnight, but because your nervous system became more efficient at running that pattern. Now here's the angle most people miss. Your brain is not trying to make you better. Your brain is trying to make you automatic. Automatic means less energy. Automatic means fewer decisions. Automatic means fewer mistakes that require correction. This is why habits form, and this is why change feels hard, because change demands energy. If your brain has an old route it can run automatically, it will prefer that route, especially when you are tired, stressed, or distracted. This is not weakness, it's a design feature. When your system is under pressure, it defaults to the most energy-efficient pattern it already knows. That's the real reason people say, I don't know why I do this. They do it because it's the strongest, easiest to run circuit they have. Now let's talk about a mistake people make when they hear this. They think neuroplasticity means, if I repeat something, I will improve. But repetition doesn't automatically create improvement. Repetition creates efficiency, and that is not the same thing. If you repeat a sloppy movement, your brain becomes efficient at sloppy movement. If you repeat avoidance, your brain becomes efficient at avoidance. If you repeat procrastination every time you feel discomfort, your brain gets very efficient at that exact pattern. Discomfort equals escape. That's neuroplasticity too. This is why the phrase practice makes perfect is misleading. Practice makes permanent. Whatever you repeat becomes easier to repeat. So the real question is not, am I practicing a lot? The real question is, what pattern am I making automatic? This is where quality of practice becomes the center of the story. Effective practice has a very specific goal. It doesn't just repeat, it updates the brain's prediction system, because your brain is constantly predicting what happens next. When you reach for a cup, your brain predicts the weight. When you speak a sentence, your brain predicts the next word. When you try a new skill, your brain is guessing. Practice is how your brain reduces guessing. You give it feedback, it adjusts, it predicts better next time, and that process requires two things: error and attention. First, error. If there is no error, there is often no adaptation. If you only do what is easy, your brain doesn't get a reason to change the wiring. Your brain basically says, "We already know this, keep it as is." But when you operate right near the edge of your ability, you make small mistakes. Those mistakes create a signal that something needs updating. Second, attention. Attention is like telling your brain, "This matters, save this." If you do the same movement while mentally elsewhere, you reduce the brain's reason to refine. This is why distracted repetition can feel like you've practiced, but nothing changes. Your brain didn't get clear error signals, and it didn't get strong attention signals, so it didn't update much. Now let's add a mental model you can actually use. I want you to think in 3 layers: signal, stability, and speed. Signal is, do you know exactly what you are trying to improve? Not the whole skill, one part, one weak link. Stability is, can you do it correctly, slowly, with control? Speed is, can you do it quickly without losing control? Most people reverse the order. They chase speed first, they do it fast, messy, and repeated, and then they wonder why their performance plateaus. A better order is stability first, because your brain will automate whatever pattern you repeat. If the pattern is stable and correct, you automate quality. If the pattern is unstable, automate inconsistency. So in practice, slow is not a style choice. It is a strategy for building stable pathways before adding speed. Now let's connect this to identity, because this is where neuroplasticity becomes personal. When you repeat a behavior long enough, it stops feeling like something you do. It starts feeling like something you are. You don't say, "I sometimes avoid hard conversations." You say, "I'm not confrontational." You don't say, "I haven't practiced math in a long time." You say, "I'm bad at math." You don't say, "I've built a strong habit of stopping when it gets uncomfortable." You say, "I have no discipline." This is an identity mistake, because the brain takes repeated patterns and makes them automatic, and automatic patterns feel like personality, but they are often just trained circuits. This is a major transformation moment for many people, because it means you can stop treating your identity like a fixed label and start treating it like a set of practice patterns. You are not a permanent trait. You are a collection of repeated loops. Loops can be rewired. But now we need to be honest about something else. If the brain is built for efficiency, it will resist rewiring at first. New patterns are expensive. They take effort. They take attention. They create more errors early on. So at the beginning, improvement often feels like getting worse. Not because you're failing, but because you're leaving the automatic system and returning to conscious control. This is why starting a new habit feels awkward. This is why speaking differently feels unnatural. This is why changing your routine feels tiring. You are paying the energy cost of building a new pathway, and at first, the old pathway will still be stronger. So the goal is not instant replacement. The goal is repetition under the right conditions, because repetition is how the brain decides what becomes default. Now let's get practical with a real-world application that is not sports or music. Imagine you want to become better at explaining ideas clearly. That's a skill. It's also identity related. Some people say, "I'm not good at talking." But talking is not a talent category. It's a coordination category. You have to coordinate memory, word choice, timing, and emotional regulation. At first, it feels like too much, so you avoid it. Avoidance becomes the repeated pattern. Avoidance becomes efficient. Avoidance becomes automatic. And then "I'm not good at talking" becomes a label that feels true. But if you practiced a small version of the skill consistently, the brain would adapt. You might practice explaining one idea in 1 minute out loud every day. You might record it and notice one weakness. Maybe you rush. Maybe you lose your point. Maybe your examples are vague. You choose one weakness and improve that signal. You practice it slowly and clearly before trying to do it in real time. That's stability. Then you gradually increase the difficulty by doing it with a time limit or with a new topic. That's speed and pressure. After weeks, you would not just know more. You would have a different default. Your brain would run the pattern with less effort. That's the hidden promise of neuroplasticity. It's not that you become a new person by force. It's that your system becomes trained in a new direction until it feels like you. Now here's the simplest practice. Formula, said in plain language. Pick a tiny version of the skill. Make it repeatable. Practice with full attention. Correct one thing at a time. Stop before you get sloppy. Rest and repeat. And if you want one extra lever, use mental rehearsal, not vague daydreaming, detailed rehearsal. Imagine the exact movement, the exact sentence, the exact sequence. The brain can strengthen circuits through vivid simulation. It's not magic, it's activation. The circuits fire, and repeated firing leads to change. So let's land this. With a final shift in perspective, neuroplasticity is not just the brain can change. Neuroplasticity is the brain will change. The question is whether the change is intentional or accidental. Are you making a pattern automatic on purpose? Or are you letting the default patterns keep winning because they are efficient? Once you see practice as automation building, everything becomes clearer. You stop asking, why am I like this? And you start asking, what loop have I trained? That question is more accurate and more useful. Now, in the next video, we're going to connect this directly to habits. Because habits are what happens when a pattern becomes the brain's preferred automatic route. We'll look at how the brain decides a behavior is worth automating. We'll look at triggers, rewards, and the shift from conscious effort to default routine. And once you understand that mechanism, you'll understand why changing a habit is not mainly about motivation. It's about redesigning the loop your brain is trying to run efficiently. If you want the next piece of the puzzle, the habits episode is where neuroplasticity becomes something you can actually steer day to day.